Well, for months in the Bruce McArthur case, the big question was just how many alleged victims could there be? Well, today, police answered that question, sort of. They announced they identified the remains belonging to the 8th missing man, and they say their information suggests that he could be the last victim.
We are looking at those tips. They continue to come in, and we will follow up on them. But like I said, right now, as a result of those tips, we have no further properties that we are immediately looking to search or no indication of any further victims.
Today, police announced that they have identified the remains of Majeed Kayhan. They were discovered earlier this month after an excavation of a Leaside property connected to the alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur. Investigators returned to the home on Mallory Crescent after cadaver dogs indicated several points of interest on the property. Police say Kayhan's remains were found near a ravine at the back of the home. The 58-year-old was reported missing in October 2012. He was the only alleged victim whose death police had charged McArthur with without identified remains.
It's important for the families, for closure, for the victims themselves, and for the community, I think, as a whole.
McArthur is facing 8 charges of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of Kayhan and 7 other men. Most had connections to Toronto's gay village. Here now is someone with the Alliance for South Asian Age Prevention, and he says today's development does bring about some sense of closure.
Well, I certainly am relieved, and I think we'll find out as the community finds out today that that's where that. And I think there was a sense of relief that we just finished at 8. I mean, 3 was already too much, and 8 is like way too much, and we're hoping that I think the community would be at ease with that.
And police say that they are in the process of handing over all their evidence as they prepare for the trial. And coming up, we talk about the trial and the next big challenge, prosecuting 8 first-degree murder charges. For months, the big question in the Bruce McArthur case was just how many alleged victims could there be? Well, today, police gave us the answer. Sort of. They announced they found human remains belonging to the 8th missing man, and they believe it could end there.
We are looking at those tips. They continue to come in, and we will follow up on them. But like I said, right now, as a result of those tips, we have no further properties that we are immediately looking to search or no indication of any further victims.
Today, police announced they have identified the remains of Majeed Kayhan. He was the only alleged victim police had charged McArthur in without identified remains. They were discovered earlier this month after an excavation of a Leaside property connected to alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur. He is facing 8 charges of first-degree murder in connections with the deaths of Majeed Kayhan and 7 other men. Investigators returned to the home on Mallory Crescent after cadaver dogs indicated several points of interest on the property. Here's criminal prosecutor David Butt as a preparation for McArthur's trial ramps up.
There's a couple of things unfolding at the same time. First of all, because there are charges before the court, the Crown Attorney prosecuting the case has to provide what is called disclosure, or the police file, to the defense for them to review. And the clock is ticking in terms of the time that they have to mount the prosecution. Otherwise, the case risks being thrown out for delay. So they very much have to pay attention to the clock on the prosecution side. But of course, the investigation will continue as well. Even though they believe at this point they've identified all the victims they're likely to identify, they'll be looking for more evidence beyond simply the remains that tie the accused and the victims together. And that evidence can come from a number of sources. So that investigation will continue as well.
So how does that work in the justice system? The police did mention that they will be looking into historical missing persons cases as well. So I guess, are they going to divide it up, try them for the 8 and any potential that may come after that?
Sure, they'll have to make decisions as they go along. Obviously, the clock is ticking on the charges that are already laid, and they've got a finite amount of time to get those charges tried in the courts. So they will continue ahead with those. Depending, if another charge comes up, a decision will have to be made. Do they try to marry it up to the existing charges, or would they run that as a separate case?
That clock that David was referring to, it's 36 months from the time the charges are laid to the end of the trial. However, he says there is some wiggle room given the fact that this is a massive case and there were 8 charges of first-degree murder. Amanda Ferguson,